In a world torn apart by war and chaos, hope flickers in the shadows of destruction. As the resistance fights to reclaim their shattered city, a daring plan unfolds. One that could turn the tide or plunge them into darkness forever. But with enemies lurking in every tunnel and secrets buried beneath the ruins, can they outsmart an unstoppable force before it's too late? Prepare for a story of courage, betrayal, and the fight to save what's left, because in the heart of chaos, the greatest battles are yet to come. Stay with us, because what happens next will change everything you thought you knew. Please wait. Before we start, tap that iCard button in the top right corner and smash that subscribe button. Right now, hit the notification bell so you're first in line when new stories land. Alright, let's dive into the story. Commander Drax Valerian sank into his command chair with a heavy sigh, clutching a glass that shimmered with a dark liquid, what humans called whiskey, though he'd never admit to adopting their primitive customs. No, this was a medicinal nerve tonic, a fiery burn that he told himself was necessary for his nerves. The drink's harsh, almost reactor fuel quality slid down his throat, and he winced slightly, as if the burn could purge the chaos swirling inside him. He looked over the bridge, a vast expanse of metallic surfaces and flickering consoles, and barked status report. His voice was rough, edged with fatigue and frustration. The ship's AI, with its usual cold, emotionless tone, responded instantly. We have cleared the solar system with 17 vessels operational. 17. Out of nearly 10,000. His lips curled into a bitter, hollow laugh that didn't quite reach his eyes. 17 ships, he repeated softly, voice dripping with disbelief and despair. 17 out of 9,900. And what's our casualty rate? He paused, voice cracking, 99.83%. He shook his head slowly, eyes unfocused as he stared into the dark void of space, the shadows of failure stretching across his face. With a broken laugh, more sob than anything else, he hurled the glass across the bridge. It shattered against the navigation console, sending shards scattering like the remnants of his shattered pride. The sound was satisfying, a small act of rebellion against the crushing reality. The greatest armada ever assembled in the history of the Galactic Confederation was reduced to a handful of battered, limping vessels filled with survivors who would never sleep soundly again. His shoulders sagged under the weight of it all. He clenched his fists, voice rising bitterly. What do we have to show for it? A handful of broken ships and traumatized survivors. That's it. A pathetic trophy room filled with the dead. His gaze flicked to the viewport, where stars shimmered coldly, indifferent to his despair. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Neril, hesitantly approached. Her left antenna was missing, a jagged scar running down her face from a burn that still oozed faintly. Her uniform was torn, her eyes tired but alert. She moved with careful precision, knowing better than to startle the commander in one of his moods. The Council expects your full report within the next rotation cycle, sir, she said softly. Drax turned sharply, eyes blazing with fury and exhaustion. Oh, I bet they do, he snapped, voice rising. What am I supposed to tell them? That their brilliant intel was a catastrophic failure? That humans, those primitive, insignificant apes, they're not surrendering? That they're actually fighting back harder than we ever imagined? His fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. That they're not just rolling over, that they're actually capable of resisting. Neril said nothing, knowing better than to challenge him now. Rhetorical questions were a dangerous game when Drax was spiraling. He paced wildly, gesturing with frantic hands. 9,900 ships, 70 million warriors, the pride of 7-star systems. And for what? For a species that treats our invasion as a damned amusement. His voice cracked on the last word, bitter and broken. He paused, staring into the infinite darkness beyond the viewport, as if searching for answers in the stars. The Council, those fools, Think we're dealing with primitives, he muttered bitterly. They think it's a simple conquest. Chemical propellants, electromagnetic signals, fossil fuels, they're divided, weak, helpless. That's what they told us. He spat the bitter taste of failure thick on his tongue. And I believed it. His gaze flicked back to Neril, his voice dropping into a dangerous whisper. Prepare the quantum communicator. The Council needs to see exactly what we found, what they sent us to die for. I want every detail, every humiliating moment recorded and sent back. They need to know how badly they misjudged this species. He took a long, trembling breath, then looked once more into the abyss of space, the weight of defeat pressing down on him like a crushing star. And I swear, he whispered, voice almost a growl, if they send us back there again, I'd rather be cleaning waste recyclers on some worthless outpost for the rest of my life than facing those creatures again. That blue planet, that Earth, as they call it, nothing but trouble. I'll never understand what we're up against, and I don't want to find out. His jaw clenched as he pressed the button to activate the recorder, voice hoarse but determined. Commander Drax Valerin signing off. The recording, full of fury, despair, and reluctant awe, faded into silence as the ship drifted into the dark, empty void. The recorder flickered back to life as Drax Valerin prepared to deliver what he knew would be a grim and sobering report. His voice was hoarse, strained from the emotional toll of the previous moments, but he forced himself to speak clearly. Standard Cycle 7842.3. He began, tone flat but filled with underlying tension. High Council Chamber, Central Spire, Domina Prime. He paused, gathering his thoughts, then activated the holographic projection before him, revealing a rotating image of Earth, blue oceans, green continents, swirling white clouds, an insignificant speck in the vastness of space. He looked at the image with a mixture of disdain and disbelief. This was the target, he continued bitterly. Our mission, our orders, were to subjugate this planet, to bring it under the Confederation's control. The plan was straightforward. Land, disable their satellites, shut down their power grids, and force surrender within a week. His voice grew colder as he recounted. The intel had been solid. They assured us that Earth's defenses were primitive, disorganized, and easily subdued. That the humans were just primitive apes, fighting with stone tools and outdated machinery. That was the lie we were sold. He hesitated, eyes flicking back to the world below. But I saw their broadcasts, watched as they scrambled to respond to our invasion. And I realized, too late, that we'd underestimated them. Their response was unlike anything we'd prepared for. His tone sharpened with incredulity. They had weaponized their orbital environment. Space junk, debris, satellites, even discarded shuttles, transformed into deadly projectiles. Thousands of pieces, moving with terrifying speed, crashing into our ships. The chaos was immediate. I saw ships torn apart in seconds. Massive explosions, fireballs blooming in the darkness. His fists clenched tightly, his voice trembling with anger. And it wasn't just debris. They hacked us. The hologram flickered, switching to footage of Earth's low orbit. Drax's eyes narrowed as he watched the scenes unfold. 6 minutes into the attack, their networks, primitive as they seemed, began to hum with activity. They sent us a message, clear and mocking. Welcome to Earth. We have been expecting you. His voice dripped with disdain. They knew we were coming. Somehow, they had been ready for us. Their communication systems, simple mesh networks designed for resilience, kept running even when we jammed them. Their defense wasn't just physical. They had the intelligence to fight back, to adapt faster than we could react. He paused, voice thick with frustration. Their military responded with speed and ingenuity. Their fighters, small, fast, agile, fired back with weapons that looked nothing like ours. Some kind of electromagnetic pulse devices, EMP bombs, crippled our electronics, knocked out our shields, and threw us into disarray. While we tried to regain control, they launched countermeasures, attacking our command ships directly. His eyes darkened. I saw our flagship, the Vortex, get hit by a missile that looked like a meteor, except it was a compact electromagnetic pulse device, an improvised yet devastating weapon. The ship exploded in a flash. I'll never forget that moment. He took a deep breath, this voice trembling with the weight of it all. And the civilians, those brave, desperate humans, began fighting alongside their military. They weren't just cowering or running. Some of them grabbed whatever they could, shovels, pipes, even handheld devices, and joined the fray. It was chaos, utter chaos. Their resistance was relentless, fierce, almost reckless at times. They threw themselves into the fight as if defending their home was the only thing that mattered. His voice cracked with a mixture of admiration and bewilderment. They weren't just primitive animals. They were cunning, resourceful, and surprisingly resilient. They seemed to thrive on the chaos, like it was some kind of game to them. He shook his head slowly, eyes clouded with disbelief. And their broadcasts, oh, they were mocking us. Some of their broadcasters, ordinary citizens, maybe were smiling, joking. A woman on TV said, "Back to you, Tom. Sorry about the mess, but I got some aliens to entertain." His voice grew grim. They turned their chaos into a weapon. They played with us, baited us, and exploited every weakness. And all the while, their fighters kept coming faster and more coordinated. We lost more ships in those first few hours than I ever thought possible. Over 200 vessels destroyed and vaporized in seconds. It was a slaughter. He paused, voice thick with disbelief and rage. We thought our technology was superior. We'd crushed them without breaking a sweat, but they fought back with a ferocity that shook us to our core. Their survival instinct, no, their resilience, was unlike anything I'd ever seen. And as the hours dragged on, I realized we'd walked into a trap. We'd been so confident, so sure of our dominance. But Earth had shown us otherwise. It was a wake-up call, one I doubt we'll survive to repeat. His voice lowered to a whisper. And I wonder, what else are they capable of? Because I think we've only just begun to see the surface of what they can do. The room was thick with silence, broken only by the faint hum of the communication console. Drax Valerian sat slumped in his chair, staring at the flickering hollow map of Earth, his mind racing with the chaos he'd just relived. Suddenly, the door hissed open, and Lieutenant Nerl stepped inside, her face grim but determined. She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Sir, the Council is demanding an update. They want to know what went wrong, what we saw and what we didn't." Drax turned slowly, eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights, and rubbed his jaw. "What went wrong?" he echoed bitterly. "Everything went wrong. They expected us to be easy pickings, and instead, we got a lesson in guerrilla warfare. Those humans, they're not just primitive animals. They're clever and adaptive, and they fight like their lives depend on it. Because they do," he added with a grimace. "They're fighting for their very existence." Nerl stepped closer, her antennae twitching slightly as she listened. "So what's the plan now? We're sitting here, battered and broken, while they rebuild and prepare for what's next." Her voice was sharp, edged with frustration and concern. "The Council's going to want answers. Real ones, not sugar-coated excuses." Drax scoffed and shook his head. "Answers? They want us to explain how their tiny, insignificant planet managed to wipe out half our fleet in less than 24 hours. I can't tell them that we underestimated their resilience because they'd never believe it. They're stubborn, resourceful, and brutal in ways I never thought possible." He looked down at his hands, clenched into fists. "And I'll tell you something else. These humans, they're not just fighting with guns and bombs. They're fighting with their minds. They hacked our systems, jammed our communications, and turned our technology against us. It's as if they've been planning this for years." Nerl nodded slowly, her expression serious. "So what do we do now? Do we retreat? Do we regroup and wait for reinforcements?" Her voice wavered just slightly betraying her doubts. Because right now, I don't see how we can win this battle. Not with what we've seen. Drax looked out into the dark void of space beyond the viewport, his face shadowed. Retreat is not an option. We've been ordered to subjugate Earth, and I intend to see that through, no matter how bloody the process. But we need to understand them if we're going to have any hope of future victories. These humans, these Earthlings, they've shown us that they're more than just animalistic primitives. They're unpredictable, inventive, and they don't give up easily. He paused, voice dropping to a low, almost conspiratorial tone. I've been studying their broadcasts. They're not just random noise. They're messages, taunts, challenges. They mock us, even in the chaos. That woman I saw on the news, she was smiling, joking about the mess. They're playing with us, taunting us, turning our invasion into some kind of game. And I swear, if we don't change tactics, they'll keep outsmarting us at every turn. Neryl's eyes widened slightly. Are you suggesting we let them win? That we change our approach? Drax's lips curled into a grim smile. Not exactly, but I'm saying we need to think like them, see the battlefield from their perspective. If we don't, we're doomed to repeat the same mistakes. We've underestimated their ingenuity, their resilience, and their sheer will to survive. And if we're not careful, Earth will become our Waterloo, our undoing. His voice grew colder, more resolute. This isn't just a war of ships and soldiers. It's a war of minds, and we've only just begun to scratch the surface of what these humans can do. He leaned back, eyes narrowing as he looked once more at the flickering holomap. Prepare your reports. The Council needs to know that this isn't over. Not by a long shot. We're entering a new phase of the conflict, and I intend to be ready for it. Earth has shown us that we're not invincible, and I, for one, won't forget it. His voice echoed with a mixture of defiance and dread, knowing full well that the true battle was only just beginning. The dim glow of the control room flickered as Captain Renid, the seasoned pilot and strategist, strode in briskly, his face etched with concern and determination. He snapped a sharp salute to Drax Valerian, who was still gazing intently at the holographic Earth, now flickering with damage and chaos. Sir, the reports are coming in from the ground units. The resistance is mounting faster than we expected. Those humans are not just fighting. They're reorganizing, rallying, and fighting with a ferocity that's surprising even the most hardened soldiers. His voice was tense but resolute. They're adapting to our tactics, changing their strategies on the fly. It's like they're learning from every move we make. Drax turned slowly, eyes narrowing. Learning? No, Grinard. They're not just learning. They're evolving in ways we can't predict. I saw the broadcasts. Those civilians, those brave, reckless souls, they're not just hiding behind barricades. They're communicating, coordinating, and even sabotaging our equipment from within their ranks. Did you see the footage of their makeshift defenses? They've rigged up electromagnetic devices, traps, and even improvised drones. Things we didn't even know they could manage. His voice grew darker. They're fighting with ingenuity that defies our expectations. It's as if they've been preparing for us for years. Renid nodded grimly. And their fighters, those small, fast craft, they're more than just a nuisance now. They're attacking our supply lines, hitting our command ships, and even intercepting our communications. I've heard reports from the ground. They're using their environment against us, turning debris into weapons, and even setting fires in the city ruins. It's guerrilla warfare, brutal, unpredictable, relentless. He paused, then added carefully, we need fresh tactics. If we keep relying on brute force alone, we might end up destroying what little is left of their resistance. And that might be exactly what they want. Drax's face darkened as he clenched his fists. Exactly. That's what they want. To make us reckless. They're baiting us into a trap, and I refuse to walk into it blindly. We need to outthink them, outmaneuver them, and above all, understand what drives their ferocity. Because I tell you, Renid, these humans are more than just primitive creatures. They're survivors. And if we don't adapt, we're going to lose this war, not just on the battlefield, but in their minds. Rinid looked at him with a mix of respect and concern. So, what's your plan, sir? How do we turn this around? Drax took a deep breath, eyes blazing with resolve. First, we must stop viewing them as mere animals. We need to infiltrate their communications, see what they're planning, how they're reorganizing. We can't just bombard their cities into submission. We have to break their spirit from within. He paused, then added with a grim smile, I want our scientists to analyze their makeshift tech. There's something in their improvisation that we can learn from, something they're using that we haven't even begun to understand. If we can harness that, maybe we stand a chance. Rinna nodded sharply. And what about the civilians? The ones fighting alongside the military? Drax's expression softened momentarily, though his voice remained firm. They're the heart of this resistance. They're fighting because they care. We can't afford to treat them as mere obstacles. We need to win their trust, perhaps even turn some of them to our side if we want to end this quickly. Because if they see us as invaders, they'll fight harder. But if they see us as enemies, and not just the aliens, they might become allies or at least neutralize some of the chaos. He looked back at the flickering holomap, a flicker of hope in his eyes. This isn't over. Earth's resilience has shown us that we're up against something far more dangerous than we thought. We underestimated them once, and it nearly cost us everything. I won't make that mistake again. We're going to adapt by any means necessary. Because if we don't, this war will be lost before it even begins. His voice echoed with a mixture of anger, resolve, and a hint of dread, knowing full well that the battle for Earth, and perhaps the future of their entire fleet, depended on their next move. The command center was alive with frantic activity, blinking consoles and hurried voices filling the air as the crew scrambled to keep up with the chaos unfolding on Earth's surface. Commander Zura, a sharp-eyed tactician with a no-nonsense attitude, stormed into the room, her voice cutting through the noise. We've got a situation, another wave of resistance surging through the city streets. They're regrouping faster than we anticipated, and reports say they're using civilians as shields now. It's pure chaos down there. Her brow furrowed as she glanced at the hollow feed, which showed fiery explosions, desperate civilians running for cover, and small groups of fighters launching daring attacks against the invaders. Drax Valerin, who had been observing the chaos from a corner, stepped forward, his face grim and thoughtful. They're fighting like cornered animals, he said softly, but with a hint of admiration. It's more than just survival now. It's about defiance. They're refusing to give up, no matter what we throw at them. His eyes flicked across the screen, watching a small child pulling a makeshift explosive from a pile of debris, clutching it tightly as she prepared to throw it at a squad of soldiers. They're turning their entire environment into a weapon. That girl's bravery, it's terrifying, but it's also inspiring. Zara shook her head, frustration written all over her face. Inspiring or not, it's costing us lives, civilian lives too. We're supposed to be the invaders, but they're fighting back with everything they've got. I've never seen such resilience. It's like they're channeling every ounce of hope into each attack, knowing full well they might not survive. She paused, voice trembling with a mixture of anger and helplessness. And still, they keep fighting. It's as if they've made a decision. No surrender, no retreat. They're willing to burn everything down before they let us win. Drax looked at her, his expression darkening. That's because they're fighting for their homes, their families. We're not just invading. They're defending the very soul of their world. And I think we're missing something in all of this, something about their spirit that we don't understand. They're not just fighting for survival. They're fighting to preserve their way of life, even if it costs them everything. His voice grew more intense. Their resistance isn't just tactical, it's emotional. They're fighting for their future, for their children, for everything they hold dear. Zara crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. Then what's the plan? How do we break that spirit? Because right now, I see a war that we're losing, not just in terms of firepower, but in morale. The more we destroy, the more they fight. She looked directly at Drax. We need a new approach, something that doesn't just rely on brute force, something that hits them where it hurts, emotionally, psychologically. Drax nodded slowly, a flicker of realization crossing his face. Exactly. We need to understand what fuels their defiance. We should send a team to infiltrate their ranks, find out what they're really fighting for, what they're willing to sacrifice. We need to cut into the very core of their resistance, not just tear down their buildings. Because if we can't break their spirit, then this war will go on forever. His voice grew steadier, laced with determination. And I'm telling you, we can't afford to lose. Earth's resilience has already surprised us once. It will do it again. We have to adapt, or we'll find ourselves buried under the rubble of our own making. Zara's expression softened just a little, but her voice remained firm. And what about the civilians caught in the middle? We can't keep destroying their homes and hope they'll just roll over. We need to find a way to reach them. Show them we're not just invaders, but something more, something they can trust. Otherwise, we're just fueling the fire of rebellion. She looked at him sharply. If we don't change tactics, this will become a massacre, and we'll lose the moral high ground, if we haven't already. Drax looked back at the holomap, his jaw clenched. Then that's our new mission. Win their hearts, or lose the war altogether. We need to get inside their heads, and find out what makes them fight so fiercely. Because I promise you this, Earth has more fight left in it than we ever imagined. And if we don't change our approach, we're the ones who will be left in the ashes. His voice was thick with resolve, echoing the unspoken truth that this war, their war, was far from over. It was only just beginning. The war room was tense, filled with the hum of machines and the sharp click of keyboards, but the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Drax Valerian stood at the center, eyes fixed on the flickering holomap that depicted the devastated city below. His jaw was clenched tight, every muscle tense with frustration and resolve. Suddenly, a voice crackled over the comms, sharp and urgent. "Sir, we got an incoming transmission from the Resistance. It's a message, and they're claiming they've taken out our command center." The voice trembled slightly, but there was a note of pride in it. Drax's eyes widened in disbelief. They did what? Patch it through. Now, the screen flickered, and then a ragged but defiant voice filled the room. "You think you've won? Think again. We're not just fighting for survival. We're fighting to reclaim our world. You might have your ships, your weapons, but you don't understand us. We're more than just rebels. We're the heartbeat of this planet, and we will never give up. This is just the beginning." The message ended abruptly, leaving a deafening silence before a chorus of murmurs and whispers erupted among the officers. Drax's face darkened as he stared at the map, his fists tightening. "They're escalating," he muttered, voice low but packed with fury. "They're willing to die for this. They're rallying, organizing, and fighting back with a frightening ferocity." He turned sharply to Zara, who looked equally stunned but also visibly enraged. "How are they doing this? How? After everything we've thrown at them, they're still standing?" Zara crossed her arms, her eyes blazing. "It's their spirit, Drax. It's like they've got nothing to lose and everything to fight for. The more we destroy, the more they come back, stronger, more desperate. I saw a convoy of civilians turn into soldiers overnight. They're not just defending, they're attacking, sabotaging our equipment, and even using their own homes as weapons." She shook her head, a mixture of awe and despair in her voice. "They're turning their entire city into a fortress, and every time we think we're making progress, they surprise us again." Drax nodded slowly, his mind racing. "That's because they're fighting for their future, something we'll never understand unless we look deeper. This isn't just about territory, it's about their very identity. They're willing to die to preserve what little they have left." His voice grew more intense. "And I bet they've got secrets, hidden places, underground tunnels, caches of supplies. We need to find those. We need to hit them where it hurts but also understand what fuels their resilience. Because if we don't, we'll keep hitting walls, and they'll keep bouncing back. Zara looked skeptical, but nodded. And what about their leaders? We need to find their command structure and break it apart. If we can eliminate their leadership, maybe we can turn the tide. She paused, then added softly, but be careful, Drax. We're playing with fire. If we push too hard, we might ignite something we can't control, something worse than what we're facing now. Drax's eyes flicked back to the holomap, scanning for any signs of weakness. We've underestimated them from the beginning, he said finally. They're more than just primitives with makeshift tech. They're cunning, resourceful, and more desperate than ever. We need to adapt fast, because if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to lose this war piece by piece. His voice was thick with conviction, but beneath it lurked a nagging worry. The Resistance had just declared a new chapter, and the stakes had never been higher. Earth's future depended on what they did next, and he knew they couldn't afford another failure. Not now, not ever. The battle was far from over. This was only the beginning of the real fight. The night was darker than usual, the sky thick with smoke and ash, casting a grim pall over the battered city. Inside the Resistance's hidden bunker, tension hung heavy in the air as Drax, Zara, and the remaining fighters gathered around a battered table strewn with maps, communications gear, and makeshift weaponry. The flickering glow of a single lantern cast long shadows across their tired faces. Drax looked at each of them with grave seriousness. "We've seen what they're capable of," he said, voice low but firm. "They're relentless, and their recent attack shows they're willing to escalate further. We can't keep fighting blindly. We need a plan, something different, something bold." Zara leaned forward, her eyes fiery. "Bold? We're already risking everything. Every shot we take, every move we make could be our last. But I agree. We need to hit them where it hurts, not just defend. We need a game changer." Her voice cracked slightly, revealing the weight of exhaustion and hope intertwined. "If we're going to turn this around, it has to be now." One of the younger fighters, a wiry man with a scar across his cheek, looked up from his device, a flicker of excitement in his eyes. "What if we could hit their supply lines? Cut off their reinforcements? If they can't get supplies or reinforcements, they'll be forced to retreat or surrender." He paused, then added eagerly, "I've got intel on a tunnel system beneath the city. They're using it for movement and storage. We could destroy it from the inside." Drax nodded slowly, considering the idea. "That's risky, but it might be our best shot. If we can infiltrate those tunnels, find their command center, and take out their leadership, we could cripple their entire operation. But we need someone on the inside, someone who knows the city, knows their movements." Zara's brow furrowed. "And what about civilians? We can't afford to turn this into another massacre. We need to be smart and precise. We can't just blast our way through everything. We must win their trust, or at least force them into surrendering without losing more innocent lives." A hush fell over the room as everyone pondered the gravity of the plan. Suddenly, the veteran fighter, a grizzled woman with a scarred face and an eye patch, spoke up. "I've been watching their patrols. I can slip in undetected. I know the tunnels better than anyone. Give me a team, and I'll do the job." Her voice was gritty, but there was an undeniable resolve behind her words. Drax looked at her, then at Zara, and finally back at the map. "All right," he said, voice steady. "We'll organize covert operation. We'll send in a small team, get inside those tunnels, find their command, and take them out. But we need to be prepared for anything. Trap, ambush, or worse. This could be our last chance to turn the tide." Zara nodded sharply. "Agreed. We strike hard and fast. We hit their backbone, and we do it now. Because if we don't, this war will drag on forever, and more lives will be lost. Ours and theirs." Her voice was fierce, filled with a desperate hope that, somehow, this risky move could be the turning point they so desperately needed. As they set their plan into motion, a sense of somber determination settled over the room. Outside, the city continued to burn, But inside that bunker, a flicker of hope ignited. They knew this mission might be their final shot, and with every heartbeat, they prayed that victory would come before the darkness swallowed them all. The night was long, but the fight was far from over. This was the moment to change everything, to stake everything on a single daring gamble. And they were ready. And that was the end of the story. Comment below if you want the next chapter, and hit that like button. Please subscribe, turn on the bell, and as always, keep the last light burning.